All right, let's get right into it. We're going to take a look at the very complex topic of human conflict, but through the eyes of a scientist. For as long as we've had civilization, it seems like we've had war. But the real question is, why? So, the source material kicks things off with this really powerful and honestly pretty disturbing question. It really makes you stop and think. Why is it that throughout our entire history, when faced with differences we just can't seem to solve, our species has so often defaulted to this incredibly extreme mode of operation? I must kill you. It's a very blunt way to frame the whole problem of human conflict. To get a handle on where we are today, we first have to rewind and look at the absolutely staggering way our technology for warfare has escalated. I mean, how did we go from just a simple brawl to the kind of firepower we have now? This timeline right here shows it so clearly. It's all about the kill ratio, how much power one single person has to cause destruction. It starts with fisticuffs, right? One person against another. Then you get the bow and arrow. Maybe you can take out 10 people. Fast forward to an automatic weapon, and now we're talking about dozens. But then you see the jump to missiles and bombs, and suddenly a single individual has the power to eliminate hundreds, even thousands. That curve has gotten steeper and steeper, and frankly, it's pretty scary. A massive turning point, a real game changer, was when we took the battle into the skies. The airplane didn't just tweak the rules, it threw the whole rule book out. All of a sudden, hiding in a trench was useless. And worse, the line between a soldier on the battlefield and a civilian at home in a city, well, that line got completely and tragically erased. So, this path of escalation eventually leads us to the single biggest leap in destructive power that humans have ever conceived of: nuclear weapons. And with their invention, well, everything changed. The first type was the fission bomb, what we call the A-bomb. This is the kind that was used over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Its power comes from splitting atoms apart, which unleashes a terrifying amount of energy. It was so powerful, it literally introduced a whole new way of measuring destruction. So those first bombs, they had a yield of about 20 kilotons. But what on earth does that even mean? A kiloton is the explosive force of 1,000 tons of TNT. So we're talking about the power of 20,000 tons of TNT in one weapon. It's a scale that's almost impossible to imagine. But then, look at this. The next step is just staggering. We didn't just stick with splitting atoms. We figured out how to fuse them together, creating the H-bomb. It works on the same principle as the sun. And just look at the difference in power. We jump from kilotons to megatons. A megaton is 1,000 kilotons. So we're not talking about a small upgrade. This is a leap in destructive force by a factor of 1,000. We went from thousands of tons of TNT to millions of tons. And this insane level of power created this very strange, very scary new reality for the world. It's known by the perfect acronym, MAD, for Mutually Assured Destruction. The logic was cold and simple. If you start a nuclear war, you lose. Everybody loses. The person who launches the first missile gets annihilated right along with their target. The source uses this incredible metaphor to describe the situation. It's like two archers standing face to face, with arrows aimed right at each other's necks. And each one thinks, the harder I pull back on this bowstring, the safer I am. But in reality, all they're doing is increasing the tension and making the inevitable disaster that much worse for both of them. And who summed it up better than Albert Einstein? He totally got it. He knew that a full-blown nuclear war wouldn't just be another war. It would be the end of civilization as we know it. We'd literally be knocked back to the Stone Age. Okay, so this brings up a really tough question. In this whole story of escalating destruction, what's the role of the scientist, of the engineer, of the people who actually create these things? Well, the source doesn't pull any punches here. It says that science has always been at the very heart of war. Whenever governments need a more effective way to fight, they turn to their brightest minds. You can see it right here. Chemists create chemical weapons, biologists work on biological warfare, and physicists perfect ballistics. Even astrophysicists get involved with coordinates and satellite imaging. And here's the key takeaway, the point that strips it all down to its bare essence. At its core, every single military conflict is about physics. It's about moving energy from point A to point B as destructively as possible. Whether it's the kinetic energy of a simple rock or the nuclear energy of a bomb, it all comes down to the study of matter, motion, and energy. So we've spent a lot of time on the how of war, but let's switch gears. What about the why? What are the real fundamental reasons that humans fight each other in the first place?
According to the source, it really boils down to two main drivers. The first one is pretty straightforward: resources. You have something I want, and there's not enough to go around. But the second one, conflicting belief systems, is often the cause of the most brutal, most intractable wars in history. And it's something way less tangible.
And this slide right here illustrates the difference perfectly. When scientists disagree, there's a clear path forward. What do they say? We need more data. They run experiments, they gather evidence, and sooner or later, the data settles the argument. But when you're talking about deeply held beliefs, there's no data you can collect. There's no experiment to run. And when rational arguments break down, the debate can escalate into something much uglier: coercion and, ultimately, force. And this leads to a really fascinating, if somewhat chilling, observation. It seems that the more abstract an idea is, the less it's based on tangible evidence, the more willing people are to die for it. And maybe even more importantly, to kill for it. So, after all this long, violent history, coupled with our incredible godlike power for self-destruction, where do we go from here? Is there actually a way forward? Is peace even possible?
The source leaves us with this really provocative thought, something President Reagan actually said back in the 80s. He wondered if the only thing that could ever truly unite all of humanity and make us put aside our differences would be some kind of external threat, a common enemy that we all had to face together, like, say, an alien invasion.
And that's the final question, the one we're left to ponder. Do we really need a common enemy to find our common ground? Is that the only way we'll ever achieve lasting peace? Or can we figure out a way to get there on our own, just based on our shared humanity? That, right there, is the challenge for all of us.